Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome, focus learners, to today's explainer. We're going to be dissecting something that you've probably watched, I don't know, hundreds of times without even realizing it. Have you ever clicked on one of those documentary style business stories and suddenly found yourself completely glued to the screen for 10 straight minutes? It kind of feels like magic, right? Well, it's actually a highly engineered, deeply psychological storytelling structure. And today, we are decoding that exact formula step by step. Now, this brings us to step one of the formula, which is the hook. If you really want to capture someone's attention, your most critical window is right at the very beginning. We're talking those first 30 seconds. You absolutely do not start with a boring introduction. Instead, you pose a provocative question that's just engineered to create immediate curiosity. It usually sounds a little something like this. Everyone thinks they know how a certain industry works, but almost nobody understands what is actually happening behind the scenes. It instantly signals to your brain that a major secret is about to be revealed. So right after that initial hook, we hit step two, which is introducing the problem. And the big secret here, it's contrast. You take a common belief, what everyday people just assume is true, and you smash it right up against the actual reality. By contrasting these two things, you instantly show the viewer that their current understanding is kind of incomplete. It builds this incredible narrative tension and establishes a massive knowledge gap that they now desperately need you to fill for them. Now, to actually fill that gap, we need some context, which brings us to step three. A masterfully crafted explainer doesn't just, throw current facts at you. It provides a real chronological historical background. The flow is incredibly specific. You start years ago to establish a baseline. You pinpoint a major historical event. Then you shift to a new technology or maybe a policy change. And finally, you arrive exactly at the present day. It completely grounds the viewer, smoothly shifting the whole narrative from the past straight into our complex reality. So the crucial point is how you handle that present-day complexity, which is step four, explaining the system. You never ever present a complicated concept all at once. You break it down into simple, sequential pieces, just moving methodically from step one to two to three. And you never leave a concept hanging in the abstract either. The sequence always, without fail, culminates in a real-world example so the viewer can see exactly how the theory actually plays out in daily life. But how is that complex system explained so effortlessly? Well, it's done through highly specific visual anchors. When breaking down these systems, the animations focus on concrete, tangible subjects. They rely heavily on illustrating the flow of money, depicting banks, companies, and governments using these minimalist icons, charts, and maps. This keeps the viewer completely grounded. You're not just hearing about corporate structures, you're literally watching the money physically move around. Okay, so once the system is explained, the narrative moves on to step five, which is evidence. A really good explainer doesn't just ask you to take its word for it, right? It supports its claims with undeniable bedrock proof. We are talking about hard statistics, specific company examples, past historical events, flashing news headlines, and direct quotes from experts. This whole barrage of evidence validates the system, convincing the viewer that the analysis is entirely factual and super authoritative. Now, what's really fascinating to me is the underlying stylistic engine that's powering all this information. It's this brilliant contrast between narration and editing. On the narration side, the rules demand a calm, confident voice using really short sentences. It's strictly one idea at a time, no unnecessary filler. But then you contrast that with the visual rules, high-speed pacing. You're seeing a brand new visual every 3 to 6 seconds. The calm voice builds trust, while those rapid-fire visual changes keep viewer retention astronomically high. But here's what almost nobody realizes. What we just did right there, that was step six of the formula, the big twist. Right when the viewer thinks they fully understand the system and the evidence, bam, you introduce a surprising, totally unexpected insight. Using this exact phrase literally signals to the brain that the biggest secret of all is about to be unveiled. In structural analysis, this exact step is recognized as the moment where viewer engagement completely peaks. And the big twist for our explainer today? Well, this entire meticulous, psychologically tuned 8-step manual labor process that used to take teams of writers weeks to perfect, it can now be instantly generated. The exact structural beats we've covered, the hook, the mystery, the historical background, breaking down the system, presenting the evidence, revealing the key insight, discussing future impact, and drawing a conclusion, this is all now simply an AI script formula. Machine learning models can perfectly replicate this entire architecture in seconds. It's absolutely wild. And this brilliantly illustrates just how accessible this has all become. Just listen to this exact AI prompt template derived directly from our source text. Quote, Write a 10-minute documentary-style YouTube script about your topic. Start with a strong hook, explain the background chronologically, simplify complex ideas with examples, include evidence in real-world cases, build suspense throughout, and end with an open-ended conclusion. Use a professional, engaging narration style with short, clear sentences." Unquote. Literally, by just pasting that one paragraph into an AI, the entire documentary formula we just studied is instantaneously generated for you. Which naturally leads us to step 7 of the formula: future implications. Now that the secret structure of high-retention media is essentially just an automated template, we have to look at what happens next. We really must evaluate the core categories in this whole AI content revolution. I mean, who are the inevitable winners going to be? Likely those who can generate ideas the fastest. Who are the losers? Probably those relying on traditional, slow-form scripting. What are the actual risks of a world filled with perfectly automated, highly addictive content? And conversely, what incredible new opportunities arise for education? Finally, we reach step 8. The formula dictates that you never, ever end with a definitive answer. You don't just tie it up in a neat little bow. Instead, you leave the viewer provoked. You end with an open question. So as we look at a landscape where the most engaging storytelling structures ever created can be generated by a machine in mere seconds, if this trend continues, what will the future of media truly look like? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.